Very good afternoon to everybody, and a very warm welcome to the very special live stream this afternoon, Sunday, the 26th of May. No technical issues. Actually, I was just trying my best to get everything onto the website because I'm literally just releasing the summer forecast live on MarkVoganWeather.com, and I believe it is now available on the website, so you can check that out if you type in MarkVoganWeather.com on your Google search. You can look at that. I haven't got a link technically up on the live stream just yet, but if you go onto the website, it should be live and available to everybody. A very warm welcome. Thanks for clicking on to today's live stream, and I hope everybody is safe and well wherever you are. Just bear with me just a second while I get myself organized. And so, yes, it is now live on the website. So, like I say, hope everybody is well. It is a miserable Sunday afternoon here, the final Sunday of May, the final Sunday of meteorological spring, and we are just about to step into meteorological summer 2024. Would you believe that? How quick has this year turned out to be so far? Pretty remarkable stuff. A big thank you to both Lindsay and Lisa for moderating today's live stream. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to help me out. I do greatly appreciate that. We will go through the live chat for a little while, and then we will get into the meat and bones of the verdict, the prediction for 2024 summer, and we will see what it is likely to present to us. We have obviously seen a lot of rain during the course of last autumn, last winter, and even this spring is one of the wettest as well as warmest springs on record for the UK. Plenty of soil moisture in the ground. What influence may that actually have as well? We will discuss that here in today's live video. Very warm welcome to Paul James, Adam Blunston, JL, obviously Lisa and Lindsay. We've got Ben Enty on the live chat this afternoon as well. 10 concurrent viewers so far. Do me a favor, everybody, hit that like button. Let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here in the channel. Also, in yesterday's video, the 93rd Global Weather and Climate Report, we were taking a little bit of a world tour with regards to the drought areas as well as the wet areas around the world, what influence that is having on the weather pattern across the world, and also what influence may that have later down the road as well. Hello to Knox as well. Thanks very much for joining in. I believe Mark Kinnish was present. I think, let me see who was the first person in the chat. According to what I can see, JL and Mark Kinnish are the two first folks on the live chat this afternoon. So thank you very much for taking time out your day to check this out. We can get 24 months of rain, says Ben Enty. Gavin Partridge is also present this afternoon. Thanks very much, Gavin. I know you've been very busy yourself, my friend. And I believe Gavin has now released his summer 2024 verdict on Gav's Weather Vids. You can check that out. I haven't actually checked his video out just yet because I wanted to fully concentrate on my own thoughts rather than watching Gav's and maybe even going, oh, I never thought of that one. So do check out Gavin's forecast on his channel. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so as well, and give him some support. He is doing very well over there at Gav's Weather Vids. I think he's holding at around 18,000 subscribers, so a little bit more than myself, but he has well and truly earned his stripes over on his channel. So thanks very much for his support to myself as well. David down in Kirkintilloch is also present. A very wet day here in Kirkintilloch. Big contrast from 35 years ago today, sitting out in glorious weather in Hyde Park in London. Can you remember back 35 years ago? Because I can't, but then I suppose I was only, 5, 6 years of age at the time, so I can't really remember too well the conditions 35 years ago. But thanks very much, David, for checking in this afternoon. Lisa Riley is also present. I will do my very best to get the pronunciations right. I had a little bit of a hard time a couple of weeks ago where I really made a muck of somebody's name up, and it was basically a very straightforward name, but yeah, it wouldn't be Mark Vogan if I didn't mess things up in some way, shape, or fashion. But we'll wait and see. We'll try and see how many concurrent viewers we can get before we get into the meat and bones of the forecast. Pretty excited to deliver this. I hope it is what folks are kind of hoping for. I know there's people that aren't really a big fan of hot conditions. There's other folks that love the heat. I'm a bit of an in-between kind of person when it comes to summer weather. I actually quite like the mixture of cool and wet, but also Mediterranean-like conditions like we've seen back last June, where the temperatures were frequently well above average, plenty of sunny conditions, but we also had quite a lot of thundery activity, especially over Ireland and parts of England and Wales. Last June had some very, very thundery conditions as well as warm. So, yes, let's see how many we can get onto this live chat before we get into the forecast. Do me a favour, like I've already said, like, share with your friends and family, and hit that subscribe button, holding up at around 6,074 people on the subscribers. So yes, greatly appreciated indeed. So let's get right to it. Rather than kind of waffling on, and I'm sure you're not here to listen to that, you're wanting to see what the forecast is for the summer of 2024. First and foremost, before you even start talking, by the way, it looks as if we're going to start off summer on a rather cool note. Nothing exceptional, but it looks as if we've got both the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation trending negative, and with high pressure kind of slightly to the west of the UK and Ireland, it looks as if we're going to have some cooler air moving in from the north. So it looks as if we have got a relatively cool start to meteorological summer for the UK and Ireland. 28 concurrent viewers. Hit that like button. Let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here in the channel. So let's get into it. Believe it or not, this is my 14th annual summer forecast for the channel and also for the website. I started back in the summer of 2010. I actually had my very first forecast was the 09-10 winter, which actually still stands as one of my best ever seasonal forecasts. Now, in terms of the summer, the worst forecast is probably the 2012 summer, where I, along with the Met Office, was forecasting a bit of a barbecue summer. And we know what happened in 2012. It was similar to 2007, where it was a bit of a washout. It was very disappointing. And it looks as if 2012 probably is right up there with my worst summer forecast. In terms of winter, there's a few out there that have been quite disappointing, but the best summer forecast that I produced may go to around the last year, so 2023. I had forecasted a warm, dry June with a turn to wetter in July as well as August, and that did indeed turn out to be the case. What will 2024 bring? That is going to be the big question. But very warm welcome. Let's read through this. I'll try and hopefully not make it as long-winded as it may well be, but we'll work at it anyway, and I hope you do enjoy the content. So welcome to the 14th annual UK Europe summer forecast. As always, when compiling this forecast for the upcoming June through August period, there are multiple factors which are taken into consideration. They include the past winter pattern, the type of spring that was just observed, as well as the current ENSO or Southern Oscillation Index, the global and regional sea surface temperature anomalies, as well as the current solar state. What influence the solar state may have is very much open to opinion, in my opinion. So comparing the spring of 2023 with 2024, similar. I think it's been relatively similar. There is a degree of similarity in the spring of last year with this year, as can be seen in the below 500 millibar pattern, but not without some key differences. Spring of 2023 had a notable positive over Greenland as well as Iberia, with deep negative over the central North Atlantic, extending up through the UK, Ireland, and into Central Europe. That positive may have been aided by the mid to late February sudden stratospheric warming. So if you look back to last year, we had that major sudden stratospheric warming, and then we had a very cold start to May last year. But that blocking, as is often the case during the springtime, may I add, it was quite strong and notable, and it did linger on through the course of March, April, as well as May. Spring 2023 had a notable positive over Greenland and Iberia, with negative in I'm actually repeating what I've just said, so I do apologise for that. So, like I say, it wouldn't be me if I didn't mess things up. Spring of this year has that northern block, but more of a banana-shaped high, extending from the Baffin Straits over Canada across to Scandinavia. Far less of a positive, may I add, was present over Iberia this year compared to last year. So with quite a strong positive and like high pressure system over Iberia last year, we haven't had so much of that this spring. The reason for such persistent northerly blocking? Question mark. Perhaps frequent sudden stratospheric warmings during the course of winter just gone, and a late final warming of the stratosphere. So that's me asking the question, why have we seen this continuation of blocking over Greenland, over the North Atlantic, and shifting that jet stream once again further south? Perhaps it was the easterly QBO, the sea surface profile of the North Atlantic. Could it be all of these or none of these? Well, again, it's open to your own speculation and opinion. Nevertheless, that persistent block over Greenland has helped push the jet stream, and with some sort of weak or strong, this has aided a negative or trough pointing at our part of the world. So essentially what I'm meaning is we've got the block over Greenland shifting the jet south, but also a bit of a high over Northwest Africa and Southwestern Europe. That has led to the storm track or negative extending from the North Atlantic over the UK and Ireland and into Central Europe. Hence why we've had a lot of wet conditions. Low pressure has been dominating. We've had what looks to be an average to wetter than average May now, as well as potentially record warm May, according to the Met Office. But this continuation of low pressure dominance. Now, the warm Atlantic is also feeding that moisture into the UK. So we've got the steering of both the ridge over Iberia and over Greenland, pointing that jet right in over the UK from a southwesterly direction, but also the warmer than average Atlantic is fueling more rainfall for our part of the world. So you can see here, this is the March 1st through May 14th anomaly at 500 millibars or 18,000 feet above our heads. And you can see here the key difference between 2023 and 2024 is the core of the trough back last spring was out over the open North Atlantic, whereas this year it's almost directly over the UK and Ireland here. So we've had a wetter spring this year compared to last. But despite having that trough over or just to the southwest of the UK and Ireland, it's still been a warm spring overall. So, interesting enough, both May of 2023 and 2024 have seen significant severe weather and flooding across large swathes of Central and Southern Europe. So both May last year and May this year have seen a lot of wet weather, severe weather, flooding, tornadoes even in a few places, hail, damaging winds. We've had that very similar this May to last year over the heart of Europe. Italy's Piedmont region witnessed their wettest May in 2023, for 70 years, and in 2024 it has been the wettest overall spring in 70 years, which is quite interesting. The 500 millibar geopotential height anomaly for the June through August, so summer last year, looks like this, and we have that block still over the North Atlantic and over the Arctic region. Look at the negative, extending from the central North Atlantic up into the UK. So a similar spring, and then led on to a similar pattern during the summer season. So is that a hint at what's coming with this year's summer forecast? We'll wait and see what happens. Let's continue on here. Be sure to hit that like button, share with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate that. We've got 45 concurrent viewers. If you've just joined in, a very warm welcome to you. I'm going to read through the forecast and then I will try to answer some questions or whatever. So stay tuned and let's get on with the ideas here. So summer 2023 started record warm, sunny and dry in June. For the UK and Ireland, cool and often wet across Iberia to start off last summer. The high over low setup abruptly flipped in July and continued through the remainder of summer before turning warmer and drier in September, where warmest temperatures of the entire year occurred. The UK observed its warmest of the 3 meteorological summer months in June. First time since 1966 has that happened, and first time September hosted the warmest temperatures of the year since 2016, and 2016 was a very, very warm September, if you can remember back then. As we can see in the below CDAS 0.5 data, June was very warm, but July and August were both average to slightly below average, and that of course was when the tap turned on and we seen all the rain in July, one of the wettest Julys on record. August was also quite wet and disappointing, with a lot of ex-tropical systems involved in the pattern during August, which led to some quite unseasonably wet and windy conditions across Western Europe. So this was the June temperature anomaly across Europe, quite similar, if you ask me, to the temperature anomaly pattern for this May. Cool in the east and very warm in the west. It'll be interesting to see what happens next. July of 2023, you can actually see the CDAS that I was showing slightly below average temperatures across the UK. You can see here across much of Northern Europe, cold than average. Further south, slightly warmer than average, but no real blowtorch actually. This was August. You can see here average to slightly below across much of the UK and Ireland here, slightly below across southern Norway and Sweden. The rest of the continent generally warmer than average. So in terms of the high over low pressure pattern, both 2023 and 2024 has seen quite a similar rainfall pattern, especially in May, with drier across the north of the UK, wetter across the south, and rather unsettled or stormy over Europe. So is this a hint at what is coming as we move into meteorological summer? That's the big question, but we have one key difference. El Nino is going and La Nina is coming. This wet spring follows on from a wet winter with an extension all the way back to July of last year, which means soil moisture for now, currently speaking, is reasonably healthy going into this summer for West and Central Europe, including most of the UK and Ireland. Drought persists through the Canaries, Eastern Iberia, so Eastern Spain, and much of the Mediterranean basin and Balkan region. Now, if you notice in this graphic, you can see that we actually have slightly drier than average soil moisture over northwestern UK, which is quite interesting, I think. But it has been drier compared to anywhere else in this part of the world. So just bear with me a wee second here, because I'm actually going to try and make this a little bit bigger without cutting anything off so that you can see it a little bit clearer. Is that better? I hope it is. Hopefully this will make a difference. So there is the situation drought-wise across the continent. You can see here Eastern Iberia not in great shape, but Central and much of Western Europe overall is looking rather healthy. Now, obviously, this map will change as we move into the June through August period. But I think there may be influences of this on both temperature and the atmospheric pattern. We'll wait and see what happens. So let's move on to the transition from El Nino to La Nina. So we continue to see the cooling of the eastern equatorial Pacific. These are the anomalies as of the 23rd of May. You can see here these lobes of cold water now start to appear at the surface. Now we've got a lot of cold waters deep below the surface, and those stronger than average easterly trade winds are helping attract that cold subsurface water up to the surface here, and that is going to continue to allow Nino region 3.4 and 1.2 to continue to cool down. Now remember, an official La Nina isn't declared until Nino region 3.4 is below 0.5 degrees lower than average, so below average. And I think it's over a 3-month period, that is, by the way, as well. So this has to be taken into consideration. We are only now starting to see the transition from warmer than average to below average in the eastern equatorial Pacific. Surface waters of the eastern equatorial Pacific continues to cool, and this ongoing process should take the Enzo region into La Nina territory over the next few months. So we're not there just yet, and that's important to remember. Likely peaking in late autumn and early winter. So obviously we've seen the strong, the strong El Nino peaked in early winter, around about just before Christmas time, which is quite traditional for that to be the case. So these are the multi-model predictions for Enzo, all kind of going into moderate, some relatively strong La Nina territory by the time we reach late summer into early autumn. So this is the NMME sea surface temperature projections for the meteorological summer, so June through August, and you can see the La Nina signature quite nicely in that chart. So let's move on. The significance of these cooling waters with time causes a change in the winds over the Pacific initially, and then eventually the entire global wind oscillation will change. This results in a shift in the rainfall distribution around the world and a shift in the trough and high pressure pattern. The key question becomes, assuming we continue to see the development of a La Nina, when will the atmosphere respond? And that is down to the SOI, or the Southern Oscillation Index. This is a measure of pressure between Darwin in Australia and Tahiti, which is an island in the South Pacific. Now, when the numbers now start to go into positive territory, and you can see here the 30-day running mean is now at plus 1.85, the 90-day, however, is still negative. Now, a negative SOI represents an El Nino atmosphere or El Nino base state. Once you get into the 30 and even consequential 90-day positive territory, that means that the atmosphere is becoming more La Nina-esque, if you will, and that will be important to take into consideration in terms of the weather pattern, both locally as well as globally. So the speed of the transition from Nino to Nina can be significant. A faster developing La Nina has been known to bring cool, wet UK summers, especially mid to late season. So that's something to keep in mind here with regards to how important is La Nina to our weather pattern here in Europe. And there is a lot of different opinion with regards to the influence of both El Nino and La Nina, because we're quite far away from the source region of the eastern equatorial Pacific. Now, the Americas, for example, have much more influence from both El Nino and La Nina, but I do still think that there is influences on our weather pattern. So let's move on. This takes us quite nicely to the Atlantic. So one major influence of the cooling eastern equatorial Pacific is a strengthening of higher pressure above. That then leads to sinking air. And we move on to the Atlantic. When you've got a cool eastern equatorial Pacific and a warm Atlantic, that tends to lead to weaker westerly winds aloft, and therefore with warmer than normal waters in the tropical Atlantic, for example, you can have a lot of rising air, so sinking air over the eastern Pacific, rising air over the Atlantic, and with weaker wind shear over both Caribbean, Gulf, and main development region of the Atlantic, that tends to lead to more tropical activity within the Atlantic. And we'll move on to what relevance that has on our weather pattern in a little while. So stay tuned. What influence does the tropics have potentially in our weather pattern here in Europe? We will talk about that in a little while, so stay tuned. So, as I said, a record warm tropical Atlantic and cooling of the eastern equatorial Pacific tends to lead to sinking over the cool eastern Pacific and rising motion over the warm tropical Atlantic, which reduces upper level westerlies and aids tropical cyclone development in the Atlantic. But what happens within the tropics can influence the pattern further north. As we look at the North Atlantic, we have a largely warmer than average profile with cooling off both the east coast of the United States, and also we have a pocket of cool to the southwest of Ireland here. So you notice here this area of cool and also this cooling off the east coast of the United States here. Quite often you have sinking over the region where waters are cold, and you've got upward motion over the warm waters here. So what influence does this have in the atmosphere remains to be seen, obviously. Waters surrounding the UK have arguably warmed in recent weeks. The effects of the overall warmth with smaller areas of cool in the atmosphere, as I've already said, remains to be seen. But interesting enough, going by that profile within the North Atlantic, there are some interesting findings from the World Climate Service on past similar Atlantic sea surface temperatures to what we have at the moment. And I don't know why the tweet hasn't actually showed up, but I'm going to actually bring it up right now to look at it, because it's quite interesting what they go on to say. So just bear with me a second. So this is the tweet, and they go on to say that one of the more interesting analog signals in our recent summer forecast is the set of years with most similar North Atlantic sea surface temperatures to now. The pattern looks reminiscent of summer 2012 for Europe, although that year isn't one of our analog years, probably not what the UK crowd wants to hear. So the years that have a similar profile to what we have now, according to World Climate Service and their findings, is 2023, which is obviously last year, and at what I said earlier, 1969, 2017, 2008, 1953, 2020, 1998, 1962, 2007, which we know what happened in 2007, and 1999. And you notice here that overall it has a negative over the UK and Ireland, a bit of a positive over Iberia, extending from the Canaries up towards Spain and Portugal. We've also got Central and Southeastern Europe, where it looks as if we've got above average heights at 500 millibars, which I think is rather interesting. So let's continue on. I hope you're still with me. I hope it's not too long-winded so far, but I'm trying to build the evidence to support the forecast. That is important. It's not just a case of, let's go, what's going to happen? Yeah, this is going to happen. It's evidence that backs up the ideas. That is very, very important indeed. So I suspect a warmer Atlantic with wet soils over much of Western Europe may lead to less aggressive heat and potentially lower pressure over the Northeast Atlantic, Northwestern Europe, and higher pressure and frequent heat through. Sorry about this. It keeps wanting me to update the system and I keep putting it off. Hopefully it won't crash before the end of today's live stream. So in other words, wet ground over Western Europe may lead to less aggressive heat over our part of the continent as we move through the June through August period. But where the ground is driest, i.e. the Mediterranean, Eastern Europe, the Balkan region in particular, I suspect that is where the heat is going to go this summer. That is where I'm going with this. And we may actually see lower pressure over Western Europe, higher pressure over Eastern Europe in response to that wet versus dry ground. But we'll wait and see what happens. But I think the heat is going to be most aggressive over Southern and Eastern Europe when considering the 90-day meteorological summer. So before we continue with the video, be sure to hit that like button. Show myself and YouTube that you're enjoying today's content. I would greatly appreciate that. Hope you're enjoying today's video so far. Let's move on. Will the northerly block continue? So that block over Greenland, is it going to continue? It's lasted overall, it's kind of waxed and waned here and there, but overall it's been there for the best part of 12 months or so. Is it going to linger into this summer? That's going to be the question. For the most part, a persistent block has been present over or near Greenland in the past 12 months. The question is, will that block remain for this summer? If so, it's likely to keep the storm track further south and with a good chance of seeing ridging over southern and southeastern Europe. This may put the UK and Ireland once again in the firing line of Atlantic low pressure. So, yeah, I think you're getting the flavour of what I'm actually going with regards to the verdict. So, solar maximum we're in the midst of at the moment. Now, I know there's a lot of people in the live chat that knows a lot more about solar activity than I do, but I thought I would just briefly touch on this. It's a bit of a tradition. I always mention the solar cycle, but we're at solar maximum at the moment. And I go on to say that we are in the peak of solar cycle 25. The sun is the most active it's been in just over 20 years. Whether this helps with a warming of the ocean, land, or indeed atmosphere, I do not know. I used to believe that solar maximum can have a warming influence, but to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure. I've kind of thrown that in just for the simple fact that I've always added in the current state of the solar cycle with each forecast, whether it be summer or winter. But let me know in the comments section what you think. Does solar minimum, well, we didn't really see much influence in a cooling sense when it was a minimum back at the end of 2019, I think it was. Didn't really see an awful lot of cooling influence compared to what we've seen back during the last minimum, which was around 2008, 9 through to the early 2010s. That was when we seen the last spell of cooler conditions, both UK and Ireland, but also globally. The last below average month worldwide, I think, was actually 2011, which is amazing to think. So anyway, potential influence of a busy tropical Atlantic. Now, NOAA put out their seasonal outlook. So they've been putting out seasonal outlooks since 1999, and this is the most extreme they have been. So named storms are going with 17 to 25, hurricanes 8 to 13, and major, which is category 3 or more, 4 to 7 major hurricanes. So with a high likelihood of a very active tropical Atlantic, we must take that into consideration when it comes to our weather. Interaction between the tropics and the mid-latitudes becomes greater later in the summer, especially when it's active. Now, when it's not active, that's a different matter altogether. But there is a greater chance, I think, of having influence and a shaping of our weather pattern dictated potentially directly or indirectly from what's going on within the tropics. And it's going to depend on the strength, position, and steering of the mid-Atlantic ridge. But obviously, you have to have storms present in the first place for that to be the case. The Azores high can often start off strong early in the season, and then it can hand off to its western counterpart, the Bermuda high, later, especially later in July and into August. That cool pool to the east of the US that I showed you a while ago may help boost the Bermuda high during the second half of the season, and therefore any tropical waves or systems which can be forced into the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico rather than turning north. So a stronger Bermuda high, that wheel within the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere, can dictate the movement and track of tropical systems. Now, also depends on the strength of the tropical system, because the stronger the tropical entity is further east, the greater chance it has of turning northwards over the Atlantic. And then that can become quite important for us. The weaker the stay, the less catch of the mid and upper levels they have. So, in other words, the weaker the system, the less it's influenced by the upper level steering flow, and therefore it can drift further west and become stronger further west in the tropical Atlantic, into the Caribbean and in the Gulf, and then therefore it closes the window of it turning northwards. I hope this isn't too blah 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 blah, but I'm trying to give you the big picture. So anyway, let's have a look and see what happened. Forecasting the number of named storms is one thing, but where they go is another thing. While I suspect many systems, whether it be storms or hurricanes, will head west for the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, they're likely to be a bunch which take a turn to the north. So yeah, I'm reading this at the same time here, so I'm trying to get this to make sense. So some of them will go west, some of them will likely turn north. As these heat cores leave the tropics and head north, they can have several different influences on the jet stream and the ridge trough pattern, which then has influence more often than not on the European pattern, directly or indirectly. So yeah, my hunch is an overall warmer and wetter than normal summer for much of Western Europe. So this is us getting to the verdict. So in other words, for June through August, I believe it's going to be warmer than average. I think you would be a bit foolish to predict anything other than warmer than average based on what we've seen in recent years, the warm Atlantic, etc., etc. Whether we've got a trough over the UK and Ireland or not during the summertime, we are going to go average to above average. That is the greatest likelihood. Question mark, is it going to be wetter or drier than average? Well, I think I've been hinting at that so far. Wetter than normal is likely, in my opinion, drier and warmer across the south and east of the continent. So this is taking into consideration the past spring, last summer, the type of winter. I know I've not mentioned that an awful lot, but it's been obviously quite a warm winter last year, but it was also wet. The important take home is the warm Atlantic and also the very wet pattern that we've seen. Now we've got wet ground as well. I think it's leading to a feedback loop of seeing a greater chance of having lower pressure versus higher pressure, and with lower pressure over warmer than average waters, with a potential storm track that is further south and pointing southwesterly. So that's moisture and systems coming from a warmer source to the southwest up into the UK is likely to bring wetter than average conditions, with the potential of a strong Azores or Iberia high. Spells of heat will lift north, periodically paying a visit to the UK. So I don't think it's going to be an 07 or a 2012 type summer this year. I think we're going to have back and forths in terms of high versus low pressure. I think we're going to have lower pressure to the west or to the northwest, and higher pressure quite often over Iberia, over Spain and Portugal, etc., etc. So the amount of water in the ground could well temper the strength of UK heat this summer, perhaps lowering the ceiling of maximum to between 32 and 34 Celsius. So I think the UK maximum this summer is going to be between 32 and 34 degrees Celsius. But stranger things have happened. But I'm basing that on the past pattern, the transition from El Nino to La Nina, the wet soils, etc., etc. So this is the multi-model run in terms of precipitation anomaly for the June through August period. And you can see here that we have an anomaly of wetter than average between the UK and Iceland. We've got drier than average across Iberia. So I think it's sniffing at higher pressure compared to average across Spain and Portugal, and lower pressure up near Iceland. This is, remember, the whole summer period. This is the temperature anomaly, and it's indicating warmer than average across pretty much the board here, which is quite interesting actually to see. So this is a rough sketch of where I think summer's going to go. A mixture of warm and cool in this general area, say from central France up through the UK and Ireland here, Scandinavia possibly as well, and the heart of Europe, with frequent spells of heat, possibly record challenging heat, anywhere from Spain and Portugal, southern France, through the Mediterranean basin, Italy, the Balkan region, and then possibly up into Eastern Europe here. So in other words, Romania, Moldova, Ukraine, and then possibly even into the Baltic states as well. But this is the rough idea of what I think is going to take place based on everything that I've said before. Rainstorms and unusually cool summer days is possible this year, similar to what we've seen in July 2015, for example, with a lot of fluctuation between low and high pressure. But I think low pressure may win the battle overall. There will be relatively short-lived hot spells, slightly longer and stronger the further south and east you go over the UK and Ireland, which is quite often the case. With the direct or indirect influence of the tropics, one cannot rule out an August of two halves, by which I mean tropical entities lifting north over the western Atlantic basin can boost higher pressure over the UK and Western Europe, leading to a lengthy spell of fine summer weather, but with the very same systems can also run right around the mid-Atlantic ridge and pay a visit to our shores, bringing unseasonably wet and windy conditions. Now, an example of that, I think, is September 2016, where we had prolonged dry and set weather. Now, there was systems riding north, boosting high pressure to the northeast of these systems as they move north. But also you can have a Hurricane Katia of September 2011 scenario, where you've got this system that comes out of the tropics, rounds the bend. Ophelia of 2017 in October, that's another example where these systems literally transition from warm core tropical systems into cold core lows, but with still tropical property, tropical warmth associated with that. They can actually re-strengthen as low pressure systems and hammer the UK and Ireland, Western Europe, as areas of unseasonably wet and windy conditions. So this is the general overall idea. So let's break down month by month. This is kind of rough and quick and dirty, but you get the general idea. June, a mixed month overall with spells of both warm and dry, as well as cool and wet. I know that sounds a bit of a sit in the fence, but I can't see anything other than that. I can't see prolonged dry conditions, but I also can't see where we won't see spells of warm and sunny as well. But I think, generally speaking, low pressure may win out. Thundery lows lifted north from Biscay is likely to bring frustration to those wishing for decent, lengthy, and usable outdoor weather. In other words, I don't think we're going to get lengthy spells of warm, sunny conditions and dry weather in June. I just think it's going to be quite a mixture of everything during the month of June. So near average temperatures and wetter than average is what I expect in June. The UK maximum being around 30 Celsius. July has probably the best shot at the longest and warmest period of summer, and so I shall go for warmer but slightly drier than average overall. The UK maximum being around 32 Celsius. July could see a moderate to severe heat event from Iberia to Turkey, and I think that's possible even in August across southern and central Europe. August, with the tropics becoming more involved, I suspect we have, like June, quite a mixed month with spells of high and low pressure, bringing highly variable weather. Days of warm and sunny interspersed with low pressure, bringing wet and windy as well as cool days. The overall summer forecast goes for warmer and slightly wetter than average. So there you go. What do you think of that, everybody? A very mixed summer, possibly a little bit boring for some folk, but nonetheless, that is what I think is going to happen. Now, I'm not going to go out on a limb and specifically pick week by week during June through August. There's no point in doing that. It's just guessing, wish casting, whatever you want to say. But remember, I've got the monthly outlooks, and the June outlook will be released this upcoming work week. So stay tuned for that. Quite looking forward to bringing you that because that's going to be quite interesting. But there's a difference between the seasonal outlook, which takes into account June through August overall, but the monthly outlooks is going to have a slightly different slant, more detail, more what I expect to see week 1 through week 4 of each month. That's going to be pinpointed more exactly what I think. But generally speaking, what do you think? Let me know in the comments section below, and we will have a look or I will have a look and see what everybody is saying with regards to the overall ideas. Like I said, there's been a lot of hard work. There's been a lot of head scratching with this one, if I'm being honest. And I kind of hope that this summer forecast has some sort of merit. Perhaps it'll be warmer and drier than what I expect. We'll wait and see what happens. But listen, let's go and we'll have a look through the live chat and see what happens. Mr. Cooper, very good afternoon to you. Feels like October in Cork. Let me see who else is in the live chat. We've got Chris, not Crisp. We've got Chris. Leave me alone. We've got Chris here in the live chat. Been waiting for this. Thanks, Chris. I hope it has met expectation. We'll wait and see what happens, my friend. But a very warm welcome to you this afternoon, John Baxter. I hope I don't know if I've said hello to you already. We've got Peter as well. Peter too. We've got Ben Ente, obviously. Who else have we got this afternoon? We've obviously got Gavin. We've got Ian Burks. Very good afternoon to you, Justin Lenan. I hope that is the right pronunciation. A couple of names that I haven't seen already. Are you a subscriber to the channel? Did you enjoy today's content? If you did, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate that. We've got the Snowball in the house as well. Thank you very much for tuning in. We've got Richard, obviously. Let me see, have we got anybody else? We've got Adam. Don't think I've missed anybody. Probably have, knowing me, but can be a wee bit difficult. I'm actually looking at the comments off my phone, and that's obviously quite small to see. But so yeah, hopefully it was a rather enjoyable forecast. I hope it wasn't too long-winded. It took me a while to get to the crux of the forecast itself, but I think it's always very important to build the ideas and show the evidence to back up what the forecast actually will be. So it may be right, it may be wrong. We'll wait and see what happens anyway. But we've got 52 concurrent viewers at this moment in time. A massive thank you for people taking the time out to check out today's summer 2024 forecast. I hope you enjoyed it. I am also hoping to try and provide Steffi Adcock. Thank you very much as well. Steffi's present this afternoon as well. I didn't happen to mention you, Steffi, but thank you very much for tuning in. It's good to see everybody this afternoon. And a pretty big turnout, I must admit, this afternoon. So a very, very big thank you from myself for your support to myself and my channel. I continue to strive to provide a better product week in, week out. We've got the Weather Talk series obviously up and running. I will hopefully have a new interview coming up in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. And summer's traditionally quite a quiet time of the year, so that is the reason why I'm doing the Weather Talk series. to give you something a little bit different during the time where it is traditionally quite quiet. And then obviously as we roll through the course of the summer season and into the autumn, things will start to heat up. We'll start to look at the autumn and winter pattern and what prospects that may have. It'll be interesting and exciting to know. Liquid is also here. Thanks very much, Liquid, for tuning in this afternoon, my friend. Hope you enjoyed today's content. And yeah, so like I say, a mixed summer, warmer than average, slightly wetter than average as well, given all that I've discussed. So we'll wait and see what happens. We'll stay tuned for the June outlook. That is coming up in the days to come as well. And I will also look through the live chat and try and answer a couple of questions if I can, because I know there's quite a lot of comments here which I just simply can't get through all. But we'll wait and see what happens. Tomorrow, back with the European outlooks, Monday through Friday. So stay tuned for that and we'll see what happens next. I believe Gavin is live at 6 p.m. I hope he is. I hope I'm right in saying that. Do check that out. I'm sure he'll be discussing his summer forecast that we released this morning at 10 a.m. I'm going to be looking forward to checking that, his live stream out and also watching back his summer forecast with great interest. And we'll see how similar the two forecasts are. We haven't really truly discussed together the summer ideas, but I think we're both on a similar page when it comes to the summer prediction, both myself and Gavin. I think we complement each other quite nicely. Sink Splint is in the house. I always find it hard to get that, especially if you had a couple of magic waters. That would be a hard one to say. But Sink Splint, thank you very much for checking out today's live stream. Hope you enjoyed it and you enjoy the rest of your day. So I'm going to call it quits at that. There's no point in me waffling on any longer. I've kept you here for about 50 or so minutes. Sorry for the delay in the video, but I was trying to just release the summer forecast onto the website. I will drop a link for the summer forecast in underneath today's live stream, and through the course of the week each video will have a link for that as well, so you can read through that at your leisure. So let's wait and see what happens. An exciting summer hopefully to come, and I hope you can stay here on the channel and let's watch and enjoy this summer together as one big community. It is terrific. Everybody's support is greatly appreciated. Thanks to Lisa and to Lindsay for moderating today's live stream as well. I do greatly appreciate that. And enjoy the rest of your, what for me is a rather rainy Sunday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your long bank holiday weekend if you happen to be off. And I'll see you tomorrow with the European outlook. So stay tuned for that, everybody. Like, share, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye, everybody.